And so when there's change or when there's disruption, oftentimes that moves us from being an expert back to being a beginner. And we have feelings about that, right? Now we're viewed a little bit differently.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Management Minutes with Mika and friends. So excited to introduce Brian, who is a dynamic and collaborative customer-centric expert in organizational change. Brian has more than 14 years experience supporting and leading a multitude of programs, projects, and initiatives working across agencies like DoD, Department of Homeland Security, and the Securities Exchange Commission. Welcome, Brian, because we are going to jump right in and talk about a really cool topic, overcoming imposter syndrome. What are some common signs of imposter syndrome that leaders may overlook, either in themselves or maybe even across their teams?
To give you a couple, I think one of the biggest ones is hesitation with delegation. Some of that stems from the mindset that others aren't able to do things as good as we are. And because we have that in our minds, that also stems from the idea that we are worried about what others are going to think about us and what they're going to think about our deliverables and our work products. And so we would rather hold on to those tasks so that we can essentially overly, perfect them to a standard that's oftentimes self-imposed. And then another one is, overworking. I need to make sure everything is perfect so that others don't question my abilities, even though we have proof in past situations and past projects that we are good enough and that we have done really great work. There's still that sentiment of, I'm not really sure if I'm that good as people might say I am, so let me do a little bit above and beyond.
I imagine that sometimes unmanaged imposter syndrome can actually affect organizational culture and maybe even team performance. Would that be true, do you think?
Usually we might see that when individuals aren't speaking up. There's a lack of ideas and a stalemate when it comes to innovation, and that's where organizational change comes in. For a lot of individuals, we are experts in a particular area or a particular field, and so when there's change or when there's disruption, oftentimes that moves us from being an expert back to being a beginner, and we have feelings about that, right? Now we're viewed a little bit differently. You've made it to this point in your career, you've done good things, you've done great things, you're still a little bit worried that, whether or not you can actually duplicate those things from the past into the future.
Do you have one or two tips that members of a team could implement if they're noticing that somebody else's sense of imposter syndrome or what might be playing out in those attributes that you just described could be inhibiting the performance of the team or organization? Is there a way that we can check in on one another?
Being very intentional with recognition and acknowledging, particular things. We need to be reminded about how good we are and how good we can be, right? We kind of actually forget about what we were able to accomplish. And so I think being intentional about taking a break and recognizing milestones, calling out those individuals, they didn't get lucky. This wasn't by chance. They're actually capable of these things. And then the other one, it's for organizations, it's actually bringing more light to, these feelings around imposter syndrome. When you're aware, you can fix it, right? And so the awareness of what's going on is a big step. And then that leads into the coaching and mentoring, destigmatizing some of the feelings around imposter syndrome, understanding that imposter syndrome actually could be a force of good. When you have those feelings, that actually should let you know that you really care about your work because you are cognizant of how people might view you. You want to do a good job. And, those feelings can actually lead you to do your best work, which can benefit you in your career.
Brian, thank you so much for joining our conversation. I know we only have a few short minutes together. We could continue talking about this probably for a whole half-day workshop, right? Thank you for being a part of our conversation. Thank you to GovLoop and the team, and we'll see you next time.